All right, we are back. It is the Monday edition of the Hockey Cards Gongshow podcast, coming to you from the Twin Cities area in beautiful Minnesota. My name is Josh. As always, I'm here with Troy. What's up, good buddy?
Not much. So, update, because I know people are waiting with bated breath. The U18 Women's World Championship, the prelims started. Team USA played Sweden today, 6-3 victory. One of the girls that I coach at Minnetonka scored. Our goalie was the backup. She did not play today. So exciting start, especially after their first kind of scrimmage game a couple days ago. Didn't go very well against Sweden. They lost 1-0.
Okay. Well, maybe if your goalie had a better coach, she would not be the backup, huh?
No, it's all good.
Couple announcements to get to. Unfortunately, there's going to be no Sports Card Cartel on the Gong Show podcast today. He has fallen ill. I think he's going to recover, though. Signs are looking good. Just a little bit of a cold that is spreading around and making it so he can't speak real good, which is a little bit tricky.
Kind of important for a podcast to be able to speak. So if you lose your voice or it's really raspy and you can only go for like 3 minutes before you're like, I'm done, it's kind of an issue. So just hope we want him to get better so he can rest.
Speedy recovery to the cartel, and we'll get him back on the show soon and reschedule that. So speaking of girls hockey, I'm a girls hockey dad. We had to go skate shopping yesterday, Troy. Hadn't had to do that in a couple years, and Oh my, our hockey skate's expensive.
Yeah, if you go to the top of the line ones, they're running like, I don't know what they're at now. Last time I looked, they were like $1,100 to $1,200. If you want the absolute top of the line, which, hint, no one probably needs except an NHLer.
Yeah, we didn't do that. But even the middle of the road or a little bit above middle of the road ones are still pretty dang expensive. We went to the Bauer Experience store. I'm not sure how many of those they have in the U.S., but pretty cool place. You saw my daughter's skates. They were in pretty rough shape. So it's about time.
They're brutal because we learned that she was taking them off in not the appropriate way, using the other skate to push down on the back of the heel of the skate she wanted to remove. So that's not good.
Yeah, it's a blade. So it basically is cutting through her skates. Not good at all. And she's sworn up and down that will never happen again. So we're going to have to hold her to that. Note from last show, we have heard from a lot of French-speaking people about our amazing or not amazing pronunciations of French as we had the all Canadians versions of the Struggle Bus on, it would have been Thursday's show. Yeah. And like I kept saying, you just got to blame Google Translate. And apparently there's many ways to say Struggle Bus in French. So that's kind of cool. Learn lots of ways to do that. So thank you to everyone for reaching out in that regard. One other quick thing I want to mention is, we probably don't do this enough, but the growth of our little show here over the past couple months has been amazing, incredible. I don't even know the right word for it. And both Troy and I just want to take a second to thank everyone for listening, telling your friends about us. It's hard to believe when you're in our shoes that we're in this situation. We're shocked, amazed, humbled, and grateful. And we're just going to keep working hard to get you guys the best hockey card content we can. Anything to add to that, Troy?
It's crazy to see how much it's grown in the past, month, and actually kind of taken off pretty fast.
So no cartel masterclass today. It's more Gong Show preschool, right? That's kind of where it's
probably, yeah, that's a good way to put it.
We're the Hockey Cards preschool. But one last thing before we get started is the Hockey Cards Gong Show podcast is a Patreon podcast. That means we rely on your support to help us cover our expenses because podcasts do cost money, continue to produce more and better hockey card content, and help us fund initiatives to grow the hobby in even a small way. Right now, you can take advantage of our Out of 99 tier and be one of the first 99 supporters of the Hockey Cards Gong Show podcast and forever hold that title. You'll also get exclusive access to the Gong Show Discord where there's daily conversation. Amazing community it's already become, and I know it's only going to get better. Great people in there, and chat with us on the regular, participate in the show, give us suggestions for who's hot in Struggle Bus, questions we should ask our upcoming interviews. It's a lot of fun. To support us, it's real easy. Just go to the Patreon website, Patreon, and search for Hockey Cards Gong Show. Or there's a link in the show description of the podcast app you are listening to us on today. And lastly, in our social media channels, so on Instagram or TikTok, I believe, there's a link in our profile to our link tree, and our Patreon link is there. We do have a new patron, Nordcard, all the way from Norway. That's pretty awesome. First Norwegian patron. Thank you so much, Nordcard, for supporting our show. We are very, very grateful for you and everyone else that has already joined up. All right, Troy, ready for the game plan?
All right, on today's show, we begin with the best NHL player to wear number 46. Next, it is on to a rookie deep dive. Then it's off to movers and shakers. We then take a quick look at hobby news and new product releases. We then end the show with our social media roundup feature. All right, we're on number 46. The hockey's most famous number 46 per the Hockey Writers article is David Krejci. I knew I was going to start getting in my head because I actually went out and watched footage of him playing with play-by-play, and then I found a pronunciation guide, the NHL pronunciation guide, which is pretty awesome, even though it's funny how they pronunciate David. They have to write that out, D-A-Y-V-I-H-D, but David Krejci, even though I heard some commentator call him Krejci. So I'm going with Krejci. All right.
I think it's completely, the whole pronunciation thing is completely is so buried deep in our minds right now that
I know.
We just got to shake it and just roll with it.
All right, David Krejci. That's what I'm going with. He's a center, currently an active player, and as of January 6, 2023, has played 995 regular season games over a current 16-year NHL career. He has played his entire NHL career with the Boston Bruins. This, I think, is our second guy that's played his entire career with the Bruins. I think Bergeron was the other one we had on here.
Bobby Orr played for the Blackhawks briefly.
Yeah, he went to the Blackhawks at the end of his career. We've talked about it before. You forget about these guys that sometimes randomly end on these teams that you don't expect them to be on.
So Krejci almost at 1,000 games, pretty big milestone. I think the NHL actually does a better job than most sports in celebrating that specific milestone and whatever the equivalent would be for baseball or basketball or football, right?
Yeah.
Because I know for the Wild, they get silver sticks and...
Yep. I don't know, a little presentation. They'll might stop the game or do something during the game.
Have their family out on the ice.
Yeah. If it's in Boston, hopefully. I don't know where his 1,000th will be. All right. Awards and accomplishments. He is a one-time Stanley Cup winner with Boston in the 2010-11 season. He does not have any individual hardware, the NHL, the big awards that most of us know about. However, he has led the league in plus-minus twice during his career, with a plus 37 during the 2008-9 season and a plus 39 in the 2013-14 season. Currently sits at plus 147 for his career, which ranks him ninth amongst all active NHL players. It's kind of interesting. I guess the NHL used to give an award for plus minus. There was an actual plus minus award, and then they stopped doing it. I think the first year Krejci won, got the highest plus minus was when they stopped doing the award. It was kind of confusing, but I'm going with that. He led the NHL in points during the 2011 and 2013 Stanley Cup playoffs. So that's a little bit on the awards and the accomplishments. For his career, 225 goals currently, 533 assists for a total of 758 points. He has made the playoffs in 12 of his 16 seasons in the NHL, 156 games played, 42 goals, 82 assists for 124 points. So a little stat fun for Krejci. God, every time I say the name, I just think in my head, oh my God, did I say it wrong?
I know, we got to let it go. We just got to let it go.
All right, Krejci has been one of the absolute backbones of the Boston Bruins over the past 17 years. Should be noted that he did not play for the Bruins during the 21-22 NHL season. On July 30th of 2021, he announced that he is leaving the NHL and continuing his career back in home, the Czech Republic. One of the cool things that when he did that, the Bruins actually came out and said, obviously we understand the door is always open for his return if he ever decides to return. And guess what? He's back this year. And I actually watched the Zoom meeting he did with the media and kind of gave his explanation on why he went. And it was just, be closer to family, all the stuff you hear. It's not like he was faltering in his skill or anything. He just wanted to go home. He said it was an amazing experience, but talking to his family, it was time to come back, and reached out to the Bruins, and they said, yep, come back and we'll work out a contract. During his career, he has actually had multiple major injuries. It's kind of limited playing time here and there. He had a concussion in January 2007, dislocated his wrist during the 2010 playoffs, and a partial tear of the MCL in his left knee in February of 2015. So
how does dislocating your wrist feel?
That can't feel good. Well, I think of wrist and with the whole NFL player that I can't remember his name that had the heart attack on the field. The Athletic, again, think Athletic, please send me checks because I keep mentioning you. They did an article on the NHL on how they go through all these scenarios. Like they practice everything, skate cuts, Vander Kane, he got sliced in the wrist, and they've actually practiced that. It was really interesting article on all the preparation that goes into the NHL games for exact scenarios. And Pronger came out and said the trainer saved his life because he had the same thing. His heart stopped. got hit with a slap shot in the chest. And when I think Corey Koski on the Twins had this too, if you hit the right beat, if you're in between a heartbeat, your heart can stop. So it's kind of nuts to hear or not nuts, but it's kind of cool all the preparation that goes into it. All right. Obviously, Krejci was known for his playmaking abilities, strong point production every year, consistent producer his entire career at the Bruins, and he's just picked up kind of where he's left off currently. So that's kind of his little rundown. So I have a not fun fact, an interesting fact, and a fun fact for Krejci. We went all three this year, or this time.
You're going deep on the facts, Troy.
I did go deep. His not fun fact, and we kind of hinted at this, he suffered a concussion in his first NHL game, his third shift ever against the Buffalo Sabres. So that is not a fun fact. Interesting fact, on February 19th, 2008, Krejci was involved in a shootout tiebreaker round in a Bruins road game against the Carolina Hurricanes and scored to help the Bruins take the shootout 2-1. Krejci's goal was actually his first NHL. I don't know how you're going to say this. It was his first NHL goal, but it wasn't because shootout goals don't count to your total. So the first time he actually scored was in a shootout, but it didn't actually count for his official first NHL goal, which he got a week later. I thought that was.
Do you think shootout goals should count?
No, because it's a manufactured event that happens. I think shootouts are ridiculous, but I get why they do it in the regular season because they don't want to tie. And there's a reason they don't do it during the playoffs. I think it's just weird that you have a different game situation that can happen in the playoffs. I don't think fair enough. All right, his fun fact, play-by-play TV announcer Jack Edwards gave Krejci the nickname The Matrix due to his ability to slow down the pace of a game through his skating style and abilities on the ice. Again, love nicknames. I never knew he was called The Matrix. I don't know if he's still called The Matrix, but I think it's pretty cool.
Is Jack Edwards the one that just called Pat Maroon hefty?
Yep.
This year,
Jack Edwards seems to be very polarizing.
Yeah.
Some people love him. Some people think he should be fired. I don't know. I don't have any opinion. I don't listen to Boston Bruin games, so not sure.
I can tell you, I'm enjoying this episode, or number 46, or what episode are we?
46.
Oh yeah, 46. A lot better than 45 because I've heard of this guy.
Yeah, we got some feedback on 45 though. There were some people that had some really fond memories.
I'm glad, but I had no memory.
Yeah. So anyways, back to Krejci. His rookie card, 2007-8. Upper Deck Young Guns, number 208. Looking at the pop report for this bad boy, the PSA 10, there are 30 of them with a gem rate of 36%. Recent comp, $122.50 on an eBay auction on November 21st of last year, Previously, though, to that, in September of 2022, there was a best offer for $275 that sold. So it doesn't sell a lot, so who knows? Pricing probably jumps all over the place. There's not a lot of PSA 10s out there. On the BGS 9.5 side, there are 14 copies, and that card on the BGS side has a gem rate of 32%, so really similar to the PSA 10. I couldn't find any BGS 9.5 comps. Raw, the card goes $15 to $30. Again, however the picture looks and which way the wind is blowing. And then I should say, I forgot, on the PSA 10, the last comp was $122 US. Then it was $275 US. And then on August 17th, 2022, there was a buy it now that Card Letter had in their sales history for $389. And I'm wondering if that was driven by his announcement he's coming back, because I think he announced end of July, beginning of August, maybe. I can't remember exactly the date. So maybe that drove a little increase or a bump and someone paid big money for it, but it's kind of steadily come down for the last couple sales.
Might ramp back up near the playoffs if they go as deep as you would expect them to at this point.
Yeah, but it's like his career is established. He's been around forever. You know what you're getting. Nothing's going to surprise you. Maybe a cup helps. Another cup. Fantastic player. Will be a Boston Bruins probably legend or get his number retired. He's been there for forever.
David Krejci.
We got it.
We did it. Whew, we heard of him. That's amazing. All right, before we move on to Rookie Deep Dive, just want to give a quick reminder for our supporter, sponsor, and friends at Stand Up Displays that you can get a custom card stand or 2 or 3 that will make displaying your cards at home on your Facebook or Instagram pictures way better. Stand Up Displays has a fantastic product. It's newer called Direct Print, where you just send them a logo, brand, or any image that you'd like printed on the card stand, and they get it done really fast too. Get shipped to you right away. If you don't want a custom stand, they have some pre-made ones around cities or players like McDavid, Ovechkin, Crosby, etc. And best news is you can save by using the code GONGSHOW, GONGSHOW at checkout. It'll save you 10%. So go to standupdisplays.co. Check out all their stands and custom options. We also encourage you to follow them on Instagram because they show a lot of the stands that they make for other people to give you some ideas and not only show you the quality and kind of how cool they are, but maybe design directions that you might want to go in yourself. So thanks again to Stand Up Displays. And again, go to standupdisplays.co and use code GONGSHOW to save 10%. Okay, Rookie Deep Dive. We took a week or two off when we were doing year in reviews and 2023 previews, etc. But we're back. It's our 14th Troy Rookie Deep Dive. Here's who we've covered to date. Maddie Beniers, Matt Boldy, Shane Wright, we're going to talk about in a little bit, Yaraj Slavkovsky, Owen Power, Shane Pinto, Kaylin Addison, John Jason Paterka, Logan Thompson, Kent Johnson, Jack Quinn, your guy Troy, Arbor Jackeye.
Love it.
Andrea Kuzmenko. And the candidates this week were, you'll recall, I hope, everyone, that we do an Instagram poll every week and you guys pick who we deep dive. So we gave you 4 candidates for today's show. First one is Cole Perfetti. Second one is Pyotr Kochetkov, Wyatt Johnston, and Matthias Maselli. The winner, not a surprise, everybody's favorite new goalie.
Yep.
Pyotr Kochetkov. All right, so let's learn about Kochetkov. He's a 23-year-old Troy Russian goaltender for your Carolina Hurricanes. Was the 36th overall pick in the 2019 NHL entry draft. I believe he was regarded as the top goalie in the draft. So it took 39 picks, I think, to get a goalie.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me.
He's a 6'3", 205-pound guy, so kind of the prototypical goalie size that you've been talking about for these days.
Yep, it seems like you got to be 6'2" and above to even get looked at.
Kochetkov had 6 years KHL experience prior to his debut at the Hurricanes. Got over quicker than Kaprizov.
Yeah, he wasn't signed
23.
for 5 years, trying to get him over the border to get over to Minnesota and play.
So prior to the 2019 draft, I was looking up some scouting reports, and I found this from lastwordonsports.com. Kind of summarizes what people are thinking of Kochetkov coming into the draft. At 6'3", Kochetkov has great size. He makes the most of it by coming well out of his net to cut down angles and challenge shooters. He can even become too aggressive at times, getting caught out of his net and making it difficult for him to get side to side in the net. Kochetkov is athletic and can get himself back into position and make a desperation save. This is the rarity, though. For the most part, Kochetkov plays a controlled game with strong technique. He has quick legs and takes away the bottom of the net. He also gets in and out of his butterfly extremely quickly. So if you're reading that scouting report on a goalie, what does that make you feel? Does that give you confidence that this is someone you should be interested in looking at?
Oh, for sure. Anything that says strong technique and quickness, I'm all about. I don't mind aggressive style. I used to be one of those two that would say, you need to be out, if the puck's above the tops of the circles, you need to be out past the top of the crease or have your heels on the top of the crease. The game's getting a little bit faster now, and goalies, you'll see these bigger goalies are kind of using their size where they might be on the top of the crease when the puck's out, but they might have their toes on the top of the crease or the middle of their skate blades because they're always worried about backdoor passes that are coming in. And sometimes, Devin Dubnyk was one I could just never watch because he always played so deep, and it seemed like he never could take away the angle. But there's actually a point of diminishing returns the farther you get out of the net. Like when you're sitting in the middle of the net at the goal line, you come out right away. You take away a lot of net, and then the farther you get out after that initial, let's say, to the top of the crease, you actually are getting diminishing returns. So that's why goalies now kind of don't play super aggressive and way out past the tops of the crease. They're usually right around the top of the crease now. Huh. Good scouting report. I like it.
Kochetkov made his Hurricanes debut on April 23rd, 2022, getting a win over the Devils. So it's kind of cool. Win your first game in net. Earlier this year, when Frederik Andersen went down with an injury about 6 weeks ago, it really provided Kochetkov a window and big opportunity to get more playing time with the Hurricanes, and he is definitely taking advantage of it.
I was going to say, was Frederik Andersen's injury old age, or what happened?
I don't know. Cheap shot. Wow. Troy's going hard at Freddie A. Kochkov's been one of the NHL's top rookies so far in 2022-23. He's 10-3 with a 2.2 goals against and a .919 save percentage. He was named the NHL's Rookie of the Month, Troy, for December with 7-3-1, 1.63 goals against, and .939 save percentage. I believe his last couple games have been a little rough, but prior to that, he's been pretty much lights out.
Yeah, I'm sure he had 2 rough games and his card value just went back right to the tank.
Everybody's out.
Yep, everyone's out. We're done. He had 2 bad games. Shut it down.
Logan Thompson. Go back to him now. Smartly, this past November, the Hurricanes signed Kochetkov to a 4-year extension, locking him up there through 2026-27 at an average annual value of $2 million US per season. Seems like a pretty favorable deal for the Hurricanes, huh?
Yeah, they definitely locked him up and got a pretty good rate on him.
I think that also means that he's the goalie of the future, and they're kind of going to make him the guy.
Mm-hmm.
From a Hockey Cards perspective, he's a 2022-23 Young Guns. Raw is selling for about $35 US on average right now. This card is going for about $10 to $12 around the time Series 1 came out in mid-November. Just to give you an indication of how big of a chase Kochetkov has been, there's been 518 Kochetkov Young Gun sales on the secondary market to date. For a little context, Matty Beniers has had 798, Matt Boldy 823, Owen Power 589. So he's up there kind of with the big guys, at least in the realm. Here's the one that blew me away. And this is a little bit of tangent. Jack Quinn has had 973 sales on the secondary market. More than Beniers, Boldy, anybody. Any idea as to why?
They probably don't know. They're like us and they get the names confused on who they're looking for.
Probably because like a Quinn Hughes or something like that. Yeah. So there's been a lot of Kochetkov steam. I've seen some exclusive sales, some high gloss. They're in like around the $1,000 range for I think a high gloss or something like that. Raw. But looks like a couple young, promising goalies this coming to the league this year, and Kochetkov is definitely one of them. All right, let's move on to movers and shakers. Well, I'll start as always with who's hot. This guy's kind of interesting to me, Troy. I want to get your thoughts a little bit later too. Philip Forsberg, the 28-year-old Nashville forward. In the last 5 games, 8 points, 5 goals, 3 assists. Was the NHL first star of the week for last week. For the season, this year he's got 15 goals, 19 assists for 34 points and 38 games played. He's also coming off his best season to date in 2021-22, where he had 84 points with an even 42 goals, 42 assists. He's not having a terrible 2023, so this year, but he's pacing a little bit behind last year, and which I think has been a little disappointing, especially in the heels of the 8-year contract extension he signed back in July. I kind of said he was interesting to me a second ago, Troy, and I feel like this is a guy that we've been hearing about, or we heard it for years, and has just never quite realized the potential or what people thought that he might be. Is that just me that thinks that way?
No, I think you're right. And he's one of those, his career's been kind of middling, right? He ranges around anywhere from, besides last year where he had his career year of 84 points. Before that though, it's, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years of 40 to 60 points per year. And I think there's just a little more hope that there would be a little more offensive output from him. And he's kind of one of those guys, too. I hear the name, and you kind of put him in that class of just people that are kind of good, but they just kind of sit there and middle along in that middle of the pack.
Yeah, good players, but have very little hobby buzz or hype or steam. From a hockey card perspective, he's a 2013 Young Gun, his PSA 10. Pop, only 154. Last sold for $73 US back on December 26th. Cards down about 1% in the past 3 months, so largely flat, we'll call it. All-time high, 164 US, which was sent at the end of last July, shortly after signing that extension, which is probably the catalyst for a higher sale there. Next guy, kind of continuing the Forsberg theme, is Matthew Barzal. A little bit younger, 25-year-old Canadian forward. Has had a pretty good past couple weeks for your New York Islanders, Troy. Last 5 games, 6 goals, 2 assists for 8 points. Season to date, 11 goals, 30 assists for 41 points in 40 games. Kind of another one of these assist machine players that has about, 3 times the assists as goals. Best season was in 2017 where he had 85 points. So he does have a chance to, match or eclipse that this year. Was reading a few articles. Seems like he's picked up on his goals pace since Christmas. And he's the type of guy that, and you'll see this with various players when you, look them up and try to read articles and research them a little bit, that the theme I saw in 2 articles was basically the team begging him to shoot more. Who was it? Dylan Cousins when we were doing breakout candidates?
Yeah, but they told him to go back to the junior team and figure it out and shoot the puck.
Yeah. I've seen him play in person a couple times at Wild Games. He's always impressed me. He's fast. That's what I'm good with the puck. Hockey Cards, his 2016 Young Gun PSA 10, pop 1,154. So Phil Forsberg is 154. Barzal is 1,154. Last sold for $96 US on January 1st, 2023. Card is down about 23% in the past 3 months. Its all-time high, $307 set in September of 2021. So Matthew Barzal, Phil Forsberg. We got to let you take the next guy. Your boy.
Adi.
Yeah,
Jake Ottinger. We talk about Ottinger all the time on the show. I'm pretty sure we probably said his name about 80% of the time. So his last 5 games, Ottinger is 4-1 with a 2.01 goals against average and a .93 save percentage. So he is, again, picking up the pace. On the season, he has 17 wins, which puts him 5th amongst the goalies for this year. 6 losses with 3 ties. He has a current goals against average of 2.39, which ranks him in 8th position, and a .920 save percentage, which is 6th for goalies this season. I'm not going to go. We've talked enough about Ottinger and all his history and everything. His Young Guns is a 2020. The PSA 10 has a pop of 463. It goes anywhere around 100 to 160 US dollars. It has traded in that range for the past month and a half, just up and down, depending on, again, a bunch of factors, but it's pretty consistently within that range. Now, what I want to talk about is Ottinger. Basically, I mean, I can really say this. He's turning into an absolute stud who took momentum from those playoffs last year. They only made it 1 round. They played Calgary. They lost. But the way he played was just amazing, and he has taken that and just continued to improve, which is good to see, because some guys might have huge run in the playoffs and then season starts and they just go right back to what they used to be. But not Ottinger. He has definitely improved and kept his consistent performance up. Good to see. I'm going to put another plug out there. If you go check out the Athletic article that was on December 30th, 2022. They do a profile of Ottinger and his family. And it's really, really cool read how he's got a younger brother and a younger sister that are 12 and 10 or something, and how he plays Xbox with them when he goes home. And really interesting article. And hey, he lives right in our city, his parents, and that's where he lives in the summer. So maybe one day we'll get him on the show. We'll say, hey, we're in Farmington, just come over here.
Yeah, they have pictures of our home rink.
Yeah, I was blown away. I'm like, whoa. I'm like, why is this rink why Schutz Mackey Arena in the article about Ottinger? But then you read in what they were going for, so it's pretty cool. And they also talk about how he transferred to Lakeville North. Boo. Interesting. It was
You're
really
right, though. Two of the biggest performances that have still, I think, for me, stood the test of time from last year's playoffs were him and his whole series against Calgary, but obviously in particular is Game 7, where what do you have, 64 saves against the Calgary Flames, and it was just a shame. So here's a losing performance where you're just blown away by this guy. And then I mentioned the other one before, but still so impressed with how Leon Draisaitl played in last year's playoffs, even though they lost as well, where he would go out you start the shift and just fly out onto the ice and make amazing plays, and then as the shift was ending, essentially crawl back.
Collapse on the bench because you can't stand up.
Collapse on the bench, and then 2 minutes he'd be out there again doing the same thing. Just couldn't believe it. But it's kind of cool to see a local guy from here do well. And Ottinger's definitely been hot. Where do you put him in your Vezina rankings?
Oh, he's probably 5th or 6th right now.
I think it's going to end up being what goalie can be, not necessarily have the most amazing stats, but can be most consistently good this year.
Yeah.
The Vezina might end up being a consistency award. All right, there it is, Troy. The struggle bus is back. Now, it spent the end of last week in Montreal. It's traveled pretty far down to it's a little bit of a southern U.S. tour today on the struggle bus.
Yeah, how much money does the struggle bus spend on gas? Holy cow.
Yeah, gas money. It's a Tesla. It's the new Tesla.
Tesla bus?
Tesla bus. That's another sponsorship. Bauer and Tesla. That would be good. First guy want to chat about on the struggle bus this week is one of those guys that I think many people have had on potential their breakout candidates list. And I'm talking mainly from a hobby perspective over the last year or so. I personally invested in some of his cards and hoped he had carried some of the momentum he created in Florida last year. I'm talking about Mason Marchment, the little bit older, was he 27, 28-year-old forward now for the Dallas Stars. So he's only a 2020 young gun too. So he's kind of, I think, rookie, maybe 25 years old or something like that. But he had a really good year last year in Florida. We had 47 points in 54 games played. So far this year though, Troy, he has 21 points in 40 games, 9 goals, 12 assists. His points per game has dropped from 0.87 last year to 0.53. He is 3rd on the Stars with shots on the year with 99. I don't know, is that a positive indicator to you?
I mean, it's good that you like when they shoot. Now, if it's just horrible shots from way outside, because what happened with the whole Corsi metric being brought into the NHL, the players aren't dumb. And they also, a lot of players, little inside hockey, hire their own analytics people to do analytics for them beyond what the team does. So when it comes to contract negotiations, they kind of know what the team's going to come with for stats, but they have their own stats. And Corsi being such a big part of this whole hockey analytics revolution, and Corsi is based on shot attempts, we've seen a lot of players, have the mentality is just shoot the puck, wherever it is, shoot the puck and get my Corsi number up. So it's interesting. It can be a good indicator, but it can also be a little bit, I don't know what the right word is, massaged if you're thinking about it all the time and just taking shots from bad angles. I think you can look at expected goals, which is like they assign a value from 0 to 1 of every shot on the likelihood it would score. So that might be a better indicator, but shot attempts are definitely, I think, a good thing. You don't want someone just hold on to the puck, lose it, turn it over.
Fair enough. In his last 5 games, Troy, he has 0 points. Is that good?
Not good.
He's been playing on the third line with kind of phenom rookie center Wyatt Johnston and Jamie Benn. He's also on the second power play unit, so he should have some better chances. I think this is a guy where, okay, let's talk about the struggle bus for a second, where it's a case between the hobby player and the NHL player, or the hobby guy and NHL player. And so I looked at a whole bunch of articles, and it seems like in Dallas, they're generally happy with how he's been playing. I also reached out to some Dallas card collectors to ask, has this guy been a disappointment for you, or, what do you think about him? And I heard positive reactions in those cases as well. And the theory that I have read and heard, which I don't know what to think about and get your input on it, Troy, is that he's in a much different situation. They've kind of elevated his role in Dallas. He's playing against on a higher line with tougher defensemen. He's not going to score as much. I don't know, though. You'd think that you would hope that he would produce. So from a hobby perspective, he's 27 years old. He was 25 when his Young Guns came out. I don't know if I would invest in him at this point. You might just end up being a really good player on a good team, but won't ever put up the kind of numbers that makes you hobby relevant. From a hockey card perspective, I mentioned his 2020 Young Gun PSA 10 pop 47. I sold for $40 US. It was such a low pop. There's not a lot of sales, so it's hard to really compare whether it's up or down. And this isn't anyone's fault, but this is one of those cards, and you're going to see a lot of these guys from 2020 where it was in the midst of COVID. I don't think they could get really great images. Yeah. He's like one of these like J.C. Penney photo studio like headshot kind of rookies, which is just, like I said, no fault upper deck, no fault anyone. Crazy situation. I'm glad they could get out cards, but yeah. Don't love it. 2020 Young Guns Raw sells in about the $2 range. Ooh. So I don't know. Were you buying any of the Marchman Steam?
No.
Coming out last year?
I didn't buy any of him.
Next guy, we'll swing on over to Florida from Dallas and pick up Anton Lundell. Now, he's not an older rookie. He's still a pretty young guy, 21-year-old Finnish forward for Troy, your Florida Panthers. Has had not quite the season many collectors and Panther fans like yourself had hoped for. 2022-23 season to date, he has 4 goals and 10 assists for 14 points in 31 games. Kind of digging into his metrics, Troy, one thing that's hurting him is his 6.1% shooting percentage is a low over the past 5 seasons, even going back to his time playing in Helsinki as well. Last 5 games, 0 points, just like with Marchment. So we learned from you. That's not good. We'll translate that over to Anton Lundell. There's a lot of steam and optimism that came from last season where he had 18 goals, 26 assists for 44 points in 65 games played. As a comparison, Troy, his shooting percentage last year is 14.4%. That's a crazy drop, right? From 14.4 to 6.1.
Yeah, I'm curious if it's just bad shot selection or what's going on with him. He's not looking at the net when he shoots or what?
He's currently centering the third line and second power play unit. One thing that concerns me about Lundell from an investing perspective is his goal scoring pedigree. So if you recall, was it 2 episodes, maybe 3 episodes ago, people were asking, well, how do we evaluate who candidates for that could be breakouts are? And one of the criteria that I threw out there was goal scoring pedigree. So if you look back at his goals in games played, again, going back to his time in Helsinki. So in 2018 in Helsinki, he was 17 years old, had 9 goals in 38 games. Next year, he had 18 goals, or he was 18 years old. He had 10 goals in 44 games. Last year in Helsinki, he had 16 goals in 26 games. First year in Florida, 18 goals, 65 games. And then so far this year, again, 4 goals in 31 games. So that gives him a total over the last 4.5 seasons or so of 57 goals and 204 games played. I just don't, there's a lot of people that are really buzzing about him, especially when Series 2 came out. I don't know. I'm just not seeing it. What do you think?
Yeah, not seeing it, but I hate when this guy's so young, but pedigree is important, and it's what we have to use. Now, who knows? He might blow up and score 50 next year. Don't know. But if you look at his pedigree right now, I would kind of be in the little bit of the worry court. Would like to see some more goals, but again, a young guy. And if you still believe in him and you've watched him play and you still think he's got that potential, obviously probably now's the time to get some cards because they're pretty cheap.
I'm going to totally steal one of my favorite Bill Simmons bits here, Troy. So are you buying or selling property on Lundell Island right now?
I know. I guess I'm selling. I don't have real interest in Lundell. I have no ties or anything. I would probably sell. I'm out.
You're out.
I'm like Shark Tank. I'm out.
Hockey Cards is 2021 Young Gun PSA 10 popped 350. That's bigger than I thought it'd be. Last sold for 47 US. At the start of the season, Troy was selling for about 70 US, so down about 33% since mid-November. His 2021 Young Gun Raw is selling in the $3 to $4 range. If you recall back in July, going back to sort of the hype over the summer, it was like $20, $22, something like that. So pretty precipitous drop for his raw Young Guns. All right, we took a really poor travel planning. We started in Dallas, then cruised over to Florida, and now we're back in Arizona.
Now I got to go long ways to Arizona. We got Karl Vejmelka, Arizona goalie. Struggle Bus has made an appearance. So just a quick rundown. Last 5 games, Vejmelka is 2-3 with a 3.98 goals against average and a .879 save percentage, which is not good. On the year, Vejmelka is 11 wins, 12 losses, and 4 we'll call them overtime losses, with a 3.33 goals against average and a .903 save percentage. I would say this year he's definitely shown a little bit of improvement over last year, where he had a 3.68 goals against average and a .898 save percentage. Again, let's please remember, he's playing for the Coyotes. Shots fired against the Coyotes. I mean, they're in a rough situation right now. So let's just say this: he hasn't played bad this year. It's not like he's brutal, given what the team is going through, what the team is, and what the circumstances are around them. They are in a rebuild. They had a 14-game road trip that started on November 5th as their arena was getting finished. And I can't remember, do they have their actual NHL arena now? Are they still at Arizona State?
No, they're in like a campus. The Arena, it's called, right?
Yeah, it's the Arizona State Arena, I think is where they're at. So this, you take all these outside factors in, I kind of understand how Vejmelka's playing and kind of the struggles he's going through. And I think right now it's just going to be a rough year. But I think he's a decent goalie, but his stats and just everything going around hasn't showed it. He is a 2021 Young Guns. His PSA 10 has a pop of 28. However, I did notice the gem rate was 85%. That's the highest I've ever seen on a card, I think. And I don't know if that's just a case of the print quality. Is that the one that runs around 70%, we thought? Is that the one that's the...
Well, if it's Series 2, it's like 65%.
Oh, yeah. So
in total.
But it was just a really high gem rate. Again, this is a low pop, so people may be very selective on what they're sending in. January 2023 sales of this card have been in the $50 to $70 range for this PSA 10, even though the low pop, there's actually been a couple sales out there, which is up from around $30 in December. $30 US in December, which it traded for. So definitely a little bit of a pretty good increase in just a month. So I think there is still some hype around him. He's a good goalie. He's just in a rough situation.
I feel like Arizona and Buffalo have had about 900 Young Guns goalies in the past 2 years. Yeah. And they just got to be desperate, you think, for one guy's got to hit. Like, be good. Do you think Connor Bedard can play goalie?
I don't know. Hey, usually your best athletes are your goalies, so he looks like a pretty good athlete. Maybe they should strap the pads on him. All
right, that'll be our segue into hobby news. And we're going to start with Troy, your team, Canada, trader, won the WJC, as the kids like to call it. World Junior Championship. And so what did we learn? Well, Connor Bedard is good. We learned that. And his performance in the World Junior Championship will likely only add to his legacy and continue to build the off-the-charts hype that already exists in the hockey world and definitely in the hockey card hobby. One immediate effect that I think will have from a hobby perspective, or we're seeing, is the values of the various Team Canada WJC cards. There's a ton of records right now. If you go on any of the eBay sales history or 130-pointer card ladder sales history is probably your best bet. There's a number of Upper Deck licensed Team Canada cards, a lot of patch autos. And Troy, do you think people are excited? There's been 275 Bedard cards in total that have sold in the secondary markets in the past week.
Wow.
So the first week of January.
Wow.
If he keeps at this pace, he'll be in the top. We do the top 25 player sales every month. He could be in the top 5 for January.
It's interesting because this is the one guy that kind of bucks the whole thought process we had last episode on the question around junior cards or CHL cards or Team Canada. Actually, they did. I don't think they said Team Canada. I think they were saying CHL and AHL, but this is interesting to see because it's obviously he doesn't have any AHL cards. What you can get right now if you want Bedard is going to be Team Canada or his CHL cards.
Yeah, we just posted today, so Sunday, on our socials a record sale of a 2021 Upper Deck Team Canada premium patch auto out of 125. And Troy, this went raw for $2,233 US. So it's a Team Canada premium patch auto out of 125. Little context here.
Yeah.
The highest sale on any 2014 Connor McDavid Team Canada World Junior card is an autograph, so no patch, BGS 9.510 that sold this past November for $600. So he's 4 times ahead of the highest selling sort of what you would call equivalent year before they get to the NHL Team Canada World Junior Champion card.
Yeah. And the Bedard has a little bit going for it, right? It's got the patch. It's out of 125, but it's raw. And then McDavid looks like it was a 9.5. Okay. Yeah, that is
okay,
interesting,
but
though.
I want to dig a little bit deeper, though. That McDavid is the highest selling 2014 Team Canada card ever. There's no sale bigger than that of any of his. Now, they may be producing more and better cards. I haven't done a...
I was going to say, were there any patches of McDavid in that? I was just curious if you could find like the similar card. But no, it's definitely a cool data point.
And the Bedard out of 125 is not his highest selling Team Canada card. So there's, again, higher selling cards there. And to give you some sort of indication again, so this is a 2021 Team Canada premium patch auto out of 125 raw that went for $2,233. So if you look at like the 2019 the Cup Jack Hughes, the RPA out of 99 raw just sold for $3,300. So it's in the ballpark of like a Jack Hughes the Cup RPA.
That's interesting.
I don't know, man. I'm sure it'll tail it off a little bit now as he goes back to juniors, but it's crazy the cards that are selling for this guy. And you're right, it does buck the trend of kind of what we talked about. But the reality is you have a player who has a huge amount of hype, right? I mean, he's at like the apex of whatever the hype meter goes to. If it goes to like 10, it's like redlining right now, right? And there's not going to be a Young Guns for this guy for probably more than a year. So collectors are going to need some sort of outlet. And, my question, though, is what happens to these cards and their value once he does that, Young Guns does come out, right? So if you're going to put $4,000 or $2,000 or something like that into a really nice Bedard Team Canada card, is that a safe investment? I guess to answer my own question first, and I'll let you chime in, I would definitely lean towards the Team Canada because I think there's a bunch of cards like OHL cards or WHL, he's in the WHL, juniors cards that are selling for thousands right now. I don't think those are real safe. I think Team Canada would have more legs than that, don't you?
Yeah, I would for sure believe Team Canada card would have a little more holding value than a CHL or WHL, whatever. Actually, CHL card.
Okay, so you found an amazing quote from him from the World Junior Championships that I'll let you read because
I just loved it because
it's pretty awesome.
You knew the questions were coming, and whoever his PR team is, they've taught him well because they asked him, basically, what do you think about your play? And he straight up says, I don't want to talk about myself right now. We're not talking about me. We just won the biggest tournament in the world. And man, I love this team and this country. Very cool quote. And then, of course, reporters being reporters tried to circle back and get him to talk about himself again. And he answered that one with, no one's going to remember that from our group 20 years ago. They're not going to remember the stats of anyone on the team. We're going to look back at our gold medal. We're not going to look at stats or anything. We're going to appreciate what we did together. That's what matters. I don't know if he was coached or if that's truly who he is. If that's who he is, that's awesome. Great quotes. Would love to see that more in younger players, but a lot of younger players are told they're the greatest, and you need to have some, don't get me wrong, you have to have some attitude and some cockiness to make it. I truly believe that, but it's nice to see kind of the humble approach that he gave in that interview.
Yeah, you're right. He's either hired a hell of a PR team or he's got the perfect personality, but kudos to him there. The captain for Team Canada, Shane Wright, your guy, he went home and showed the crack in his gold medal, and they said, oh, that looks nice. See ya. He's out.
What an up and down. This will be really telling for his career, just how he handles this year, because it's been up, down, down. Actually, it's probably been like down, 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 up, and down again. I mean, it's just a whirlwind for him. Definitely
what you call first world problems, but he has been on quite the hockey roller coaster since falling in the draft to number 4, right? He was the presumed number 1 pick for really the past year, had the deal with Upper Deck, I think, kind of locked in, and falls to 4th, gives the kind of angry eye look as he's putting on the Kraken jersey. And I just hope that he's been able to take everything in stride, right? Because when you talk about managing a young player and not trying to wreck a young player, I don't know if you could give the Kraken really good marks for how they've kind of handled this whole thing.
Yeah, there's definitely a disconnect between, I think, the GM or maybe upper management and the coach. But I actually do give credit to the coach for sticking to his guns and saying, hey, this is what we're doing. We're actually a playoff team now, and I don't think he's ready and will help us. So I give him credit, a lot of credit to the head coach on this, just for sticking to his guns and trying to win.
That's been one of the big surprises, right, is that they played so well. And like you said, they don't think he's ready. But just to give a little bit of a recap, so he's not eligible to play in the AHL this season because of a draft agreement between the CHL and the NHL as it relates to 18-year-olds that are drafted. Aside from one little loophole that allows you for a 5-game conditioning stint, which he did do last month. And I think he played pretty decent down at the AHL level too. I keep contending because every time he plays, and again, I haven't watched the play, but he seems to produce a little bit. So my kind of theory, and not or very much sort of being on the periphery of this, is that it must be a lot of practice type stuff that are really leading them to not really even give him the opportunity, right? When he sat in the press box for 3 weeks straight or something like that.
Even when his family came.
Sad. Grandma and grandpa got to watch him in the press box. So it's always kind of been the NHL or back to the CHL for right. Issue of the CHL is you can't bounce back and forth like you can between the AHL and the NHL. So if he did go back into the OHL, that he would have to stay there for the rest of the season and basically not be eligible to return to the Kraken this year. So a day or so ago, the Kraken announced that Wright is headed back to the Ontario Hockey League. It's also expected he'll be traded from his prior team, Kingston, to, I guess, a better team. It's really hard in the U.S. to kind of stay in the whole CHL loop. You know, it's something that it's not part of our fabric here, I guess. So learning a lot more about that, of course. Of course, you know, when you add everything up, he's not going to play in Seattle again this year. They are a playoff team. Looks like they don't think he can help. What do you think this means for him as a player, Troy, and from the hobby perspective?
It'll be interesting when his Young Guns comes out. What happens with it?
I don't think it's coming out this year.
You think
they've invested too much in him to make him a Series 2 guy playing in the OHL or an extended guy, right?
I was curious what man, I would love to be in those meetings. What you go around with that, with how he was kind of hyped and now it's kind of not working out how they thought. Yeah, I don't know what it means from a hobby perspective. Again, it's super, super young. Maybe blows up in the CHL or going back to CHL and does well. And then I guess sit and wait till next year, I guess. I don't know.
We'll have to wait and see. I just don't predict. I was wondering if he'd be a Series 2 guy. And, well, I guess if he is, it's probably too late to pull him at this point, right?
That's what the thing is. It's like this set's been, I'm guessing, locked and loaded for a while. So that'll be interesting to see what happens.
We will watch that for sure. Okay, let's move on to, here's a note on the 2023 Winter Classic played last week in Boston between the Bruins and Penguins at Fenway Park. Troy, from a TV ratings perspective, averaged 1.8 million viewers on TNT. This was up 31% from the complete beatdown and humiliation of the Minnesota Wild last year at Target Field in Minneapolis. It was the most watched regular season game of all time.
Wow.
That's pretty cool. I think a decent sign for the popularity of the game. Probably has something to do with the teams involved being at Fenway Park, right? It's kind of, you have Boston and Pittsburgh, two big hockey markets, one of the most iconic baseball stadiums. I think a lot of natural intrigue there, but good to see the rating so high. I'll be really impressed, though, again, next year if they can break records when it's Seattle, when you have the Kraken versus Vegas. Like I said, a little bit more impressed. Someone, though, just mentioned, I don't know if you saw this on the Gongshow Discord, that part of the reason behind Kraken and Vegas is that from revenue producing markets, they're already near the top. I haven't verified that, but
that would make sense. New teams, I think, usually do pretty well right away. And then Vegas is just cool. Like the Kraken the Golden Knights, gotta believe their marketing revenue and what they get from jersey sales and everything is probably pretty high up there, which you kind of just said.
Yeah. I always think crack-a-lackin' when I hear the word Kraken. Who was the stand-up comedian that was at Chris Rock? Or
I can't remember. I remember the phrase, but I don't know who it was.
All right, Troy, switching over quick to the All-Star roster announcements. The first 32 NHL All-Stars were announced, one per team. These picks are made by the NHL's Hockey Operations Department. That's kind of strange, huh?
Definitely strange, but then I actually found out that it's a whole new process this year on how they're selecting the first, I guess they called it the 32, right? So the NHL, the hockey operation selects the initial 8-player rosters for each division. And then it looks like the 3 remaining players for each division, 2 skaters, 1 goalie, will be selected by an all-star fan vote. That's on whatever, runs through January 17th. It definitely seems weird, but maybe they're trying to get away from the whole John Scott situation. Because the fans, you give the fans their voting process or the internet any leeway, and they usually come back to bite you.
I feel like, though, in most sports, it's vice versa, though, right? Where the fans pick the starters and then the coaches or GMs vote on the rest. I don't know. There's just something about me, or something about the league deciding who the players are that just doesn't sit well with me. But we'll move on. So a couple notables in the first 32. Matty Beniers making an all-star game in his rookie year. Same with Logan Thompson. That's kind of cool, huh?
Definitely. I mean, kind of expected, but definitely cool to see Beniers and Thompson, your Calder candidate, in there.
Yeah, I think that pretty much means that both of them are the front runners right now, I would guess. Then you have the NHL operations department picking Nick Suzuki over Cole Caulfield. How do you feel about that?
I don't know. Maybe Suzuki got a little bump because he's the captain, and their points are pretty well.
They're both playing well.
Tied. Yeah, I mean, I think they're really close in points. So I guess the operations department decided Suzuki, or because he's the captain. He probably learned all his French, so he's impressing everyone.
Then the big shocker to me, Mitch Marner picked over Austin Matthews. Now, Marner's having a better season, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard more about Marner this year than Matthews for sure.
But Troy, has Batman become Robin and Robin become Batman at this point, or what?
Maybe. I mean, again, small sample size.
Yeah, I was thinking a lot, too, about the All-Star game and All-Stars, and I think we're at the age in our lives where I'll speak for you and you can agree or disagree, but that All-Star games mean very little at this point, or All-Star. Like, even when we're going through a player's accolades, and I hear, was a 7-time All-Star, I don't know, does that really do anything for you at this point?
No, because it's a popularity contest.
It is important for kids, though. So that's like when you think about, I remember as a kid loving the All-Star games, the Pro Bowl or the NHL, and like the skills competitions and all of that. So I think as far as generating fan interest in the game and getting the kids hooked on hockey and maybe cards, that it's a good thing from that perspective. Like how Upper Deck dropped the All-Star PMGs from Skybox. Like, I'm good with that. I'd rather have a retro than an All-Star. So we'll see who else makes the teams beyond that. Oh, one other thing, actually, I want to go back to it real quick. Are you a fan of like every team should have a player represented, or do you think that's BS? It should just be the best roster from each conference?
I know why they do it. They want interest in every market. So I'm fine with why they do it. I know the reasoning. I can live with it. However, if you want it to be like a true all-star game, which it probably will never be, you would get rid of that rule right away.
Mm-hmm. I agree with you there. All right, last little mini segment in hobby news, but kind of a big important one for the hobby. So in the Golden December Vintage Elite Auction, Troy, there's a pretty big Bobby Orr rookie that's up right now. It's the 1966 USA Test PSA 8.5, population of 6, and there's 2 PSA 9s and 0 PSA 10s. So this is one of the best 8 Bobby Orr rookies. I forgot to update it, Troy. Do you want to pull up the Golden real quick and see kind of where the bid's at on this one? So we're recording on Sunday. A USA Test PSA 8.5 last sold at Golden this past April for $135,000 US. It was the 3rd highest sale for a Bobby Orr card ever. The top 2 sales were a 1966 Topps, not a USA Test, a regular one, a BVG 10 Pristine that sold for $276,000 US in February 2021. And then one of the 2 1966 Topps USA Test PSA 9s sold for $204,000 US in February of 2019. Were you able to find it, Troy?
I did. It is currently at $67,000 US.
I think the auction runs to like the 19th or something like that.
Yeah,
right?
Says, 3 days left.
Or 3 days left. No, so not the 19th. But yeah, I'm sure it'll go up from there. What I want to know, and I don't know why this like randomly came to me. So if you think of the best hockey cards, right? You have the 79 Gretzky rookie, the OPC PSA 10, right? Pop 2. The 79 Topps Gretzky rookie PSA 10, Pop 2. The 1966 Topps USA Test Bobby Orr PSA 9, Pop 2. What is it with it's like the best card comes in 2s, right?
Excuse me. I think it's some conspiracy theory. You should research more.
It's a grading conspiracy. That's all we need.
Yeah, there you go.
Is another. There was one other item in the Golden December Vintage Elite Auction that I wanted to chat about quick because I think this is kind of interesting. There's a 1979, speaking of Gretzky rookie, 1979 OPG sealed wax box. It has the BBCE, Troy, wrapping and certification. So question number one is, does that carry any weight with you anymore after the last year or so that BBCE has had?
So I'm going to say this. I'm not the biggest grader. I complain about grading all the time in the process. But man, when I think about certifying sealed wax and just the disaster that BBCE had go on with the Logan Paul box, the PR mess with their explanations and coming out with stuff, I don't understand how you authenticate a sealed box. And that's just me personally. I get you can look at things
they
on
authenticate cases, Troy.
Yeah.
How do you do that? It's a card, but it's a brown cardboard box.
Well, it's like with that Logan Paul thing, having the G.I. Joe packs in there. Because if I'm authenticating, I can't open it and look in there.
No.
I don't know. I just have a real problem with sealed wax being authenticated or sealed cases. I don't think I would ever buy anything like that. And with BBC, I don't know if I'm sure they've had other stuff come up. And let's get that. Grading companies have this issue too. They've all been duped or whatever. It's not new. I just really didn't like how BBC handled the whole Logan Paul with the Pokemon cards and their PR thing. And the thing that really bugged me about that whole Logan Paul sealed wax is there were so many red flags that people pointed out of that sealed case or box, whatever it was, and they still went ahead and authenticated it when if you put all that information together, it probably should have never been authenticated.
And there's no insurance component to it. So why would you pay a premium for it? Because the BBCE still does hold it doesn't with me, but it holds a hobby premium. And you'll see it in these 79 OPT boxes too. But if you're going to pay all the money it takes to certify it and definitely the premium to own it, it should always come. I can't believe part of their service doesn't include some sort of insurance, right? Where if it's proven that this is fraud, that you're made whole. Because why else would it matter that this random company that's Steve guy, right, who's been around for 30 years, that obviously makes a lot of mistakes. It just seems the whole concept dumb to me. Do you have an update as the bid on this one too?
Oh, I don't. I wasn't even looking at it. Hold on.
Well, while you're looking that up, so the highest sale to date for a BBCE quote-unquote certified sealed 1979 OPG hockey box was $144,000 US, set in May of 2021 at the Gongshow partner PWCC Premier Auction. The other one sold 3 days later at Golden for $109,000 US, but one hasn't sold since publicly. So you had $144,000, then $109,000. Where's this one at right now?
$101,000 US.
With 3 days left? Wow. Okay, so the whole BBCE thing was question number one. Now, here's question number two. If you bought this, would it ever possibly make sense to open it? Because I was kind of like putting myself in, like if I had $100,000 to blow on a box of hockey cards, you know us, we would open it for sure because we're degenerates and we can't. I'd have to ship that box to a Russian work camp in Siberia so that I would never have access to it and would never open it. But if you did, what are the odds that you could either make your money back or come out ahead?
No, I would. The smart move is not to open it. Don't open it.
Oh, I did the breakdown here, Troy. There's 396 cards in the 1979-80 OPT set. A box consists of 48 packs with 14 cards per pack, which is actually a pretty big box for today's standard. I can't think of anything that has that many cards in it, right? So a flagship box is 24 and 12? No, 24 and 8. So it has 100 cards or so 200 cards. Well, so a box of 1979 OPG has 672 cards in the box, right? So 396 cards in a set, 672 cards in a box. I know, Troy, this isn't a math show, but on average, you'd have 1.7 Gretzky rookies in the box. Now, here's the big problem, is that we know that you pull a Gretzky, even as good as condition as the box might be in, and as crispy and clean and nice as the packs might be, there's probably no chance you're pulling a 10 anyway, right?
Do you know the gem rate?
Oh, it's way less than 1%, right?
Yeah, I have it up. It's 0.02% is the gem rate on a 79 OPG Gretzky to get a 10.
And some people might be thinking, well, if it's pack fresh, right? Well, let's use our eBay sales. Pack fresh. Pack fresh. Gretzky rookie. It's still, though, there was so many centering issues, so many print issues, right? It doesn't mean that a corner is not going to be a little janky coming out of the box. So, if you get a 10, right, you're way in the money, right? It's $1.5 million card. Now, it's hard to project what it would be worth because there's only 2 PSA 10s. And so if you pull a 10 out of this box, it's going to be 3. And in theory would decrease the value of the 10 because the pop count just went up by 50%. Definitely more than $1 million card there. Now you're going to get an average of 1.7 Gretzkys. If you get one and it's a PSA 9, you probably pay for your box. But that's even a stretch. I mean, I saw some examples where a guy pulled one out of a box like this and it came back a 7. And to tell you how much of a disaster that would be, a PSA 8 is worth about 11,000 US right now.
Yeah, there's no way it makes sense to open this thing. I don't even think it makes sense to buy this thing, but teach their own.
Right. I mean, the whole lottery, well, so much of collecting is a lottery fantasy, right? That's what motivates.
Mm-hmm.
And we're not we're preaching to the choir here because we're guilty of this all the time.
We're just as guilty.
But I agree with you. You would never, ever, ever want to open this box. And it does, though, if you look back at just sports card collecting as a whole, one of the safer investments over the last 3 or 4 years has been sealed wax.
Mm-hmm.
You get a good, if you have a 2015, when McDavid was he Series 1? Yeah, Series 1 hobby box, then you're doing pretty good. So how was McDavid Series 1 in 2015?
Oh, I have no clue. Are you asking what the gem rate is or just how it ended up in Series 1?
Well, we talked about like when Bedard would
I don't
end
know
up
when
in product.
I don't know when the NHL draft was in 2015.
And when the product came out and all that
stuff. I'm sure there's a perfectly good explanation that we just don't know.
All right, so a couple kind of interesting cards, card, and then the box of 79 OPG there. Before we move on, I do want to mention our friends and partners, PWCC, and thank them again for supporting not only the hockey hobby and content producers like us. We greatly appreciate them and encourage you to check out their auctions, marketplace, and vault at pwccmarketplace.com. Quick reminder, the January premiere auction is live now. There's only a couple hockey cards in this month's premiere. There's a 79 Topps Gretzky PSA 9 and another 79 Topps Gretzky BVG 8.5. Also, today, the day the podcast was released, the new PWCC Weekly comes out. We'll have a preview with some of the interesting cards on Thursday's show. Also look for a social post from us today or tomorrow with the top sales from the last week's PWCC Weekly. There's been some banger cards of the PWCC Weekly. That's one of my favorite things to do. I'm a big researcher, as you all may have gathered, and love looking through those auctions. Last note on PWCC, I'm still waiting on my grades for my vault submission. I sent in a 2021 OPG Cole Caulfield Platinum Preview and a 2019 OPG Platinum Jack Hughes Rainbow, where I also selected the SGC grading option. I do check about 12 times a day, Troy. As you know, as you can imagine, I'm kind of obsessed with getting those results in. Hopefully they'll come in soon, and then I'll kind of decide what to do with them, whether put them in the auction or let them sit in the vault for a while. Okay, you ready for the shortest new product releases segment ever?
I'm ready.
2021 Skybox Metal Universe comes out Wednesday. Hopefully.
Hopefully.
What's after that? Who knows? No idea. We talked a little bit a show or two ago. I'm guessing there will be nothing else in January, but as far as what's next, my 3 best guesses column or contenders would be 2021 Allure, Stature, or Credentials. Anything to add to new releases?
Nope. I'm excited to open this box of Skybox Metal, see what's in there.
Oh, you know us, we'll be right away. We've already got Skybox Metal on order, but we're going to try to have it in hand before we record Wednesday's show. Okay, last segment for today. Wanted to do another social media roundup segment. There's a couple interesting posts that we did, but first I want to mention that if you've caught at all our first 2022-23 Series 1 box opening ROI tracking, we've been doing these series for 6 months or more now, where we've been really the goal is to give everyone a realistic perspective of what it is to open up wax. And we love wax and love ripping, but most of the time you don't come out ahead, I would say. It does look like, though, this box, we might just eke out a positive ROI and get into the green for, or I should say, we want to thank our partner on this, tdsbreaks.com, their local card shop here in Eagan, Minnesota. So it's tdsbreaks.com. They supplied the hobby box. They also gave us an offer. They do tons of online breaking. They do hockey breaks, other sports. If you wanted to use the code Gongshow at checkout, you can save 10% off your first break with them. So check out those videos on our Instagram, TikTok, or Facebook accounts. Okay, so a couple days ago, we did an update kind of research project or value comparison between raw cards and their PSA 8, 9, and 10 graded values. I think, Troy, we last did this past summer. And so I thought it'd be interesting to check back and see if anything has changed since then. So I want to start with the kind of the premise or the rule of thumb that I think both shared and used prior to this past summer, where we kind of over the last number of years in the hobby have sort of had this rule of thumb where PSA 8 should roughly equal a raw card value. PSA 9, call it 1.5 times raw, and PSA 10, maybe 3 to 4 times raw. So if you have a $100 raw card, right, you would expect the PSA 8 to be worth $100, a PSA 9, maybe 150, and a PSA 10 in the $300 to $400 range. You kind of on board with that, Troy, and agree that that's...
I am. I'm just listening to my dog howl in the background. The PSA 10, I think I might have thought was like 5 times, but 3 to 4 works with me. 5. Okay. I think I always wanted to say like 5 to 10, but I think that was me being naive. I think 5 is a little bit closer, and I'm fine with it in the 3 to 4 times raw.
So what we found this summer when we looked into this is that PSA 8s had lost a huge amount of their value and were typically worth less than raw. PSA 9s end up being about the price of raw, sometimes a little bit less. And PSA 10s, I think we're still in that 3 to 4 times raw value range. So again, wanted to check back in 6 months or so later and look at raw versus graded card values and see if anything's changed in that regard. And so what we did is we looked at kind of notable young guns, really starting with McDavid back in 2015. And I'm going to run through a couple of them. So you look at like McDavid right now, his raw young guns is about 1,179 US. A PSA 8 Troy goes for about 600. That's 49% of his raw value, which is crazy. Wow. You want a PSA 9, it's about 1,217 US dollars, about 3% premium over raw. And PSA 10 is 3,041. So about just under 3 times raw, right? So kind of, that at least holding, which is, and this is pretty close to what we saw last summer, to be honest. One more quick example of this are the 2016 Austin Matthews Young Guns. Raw is 534 US, PSA 8, 356 US. So 33% less than raw. PSA 9, $400 US. 25% less than raw. And PSA 10, 1331. A little more than 2.5 times raw there. So again, in the same ballpark of what we saw. And this holds true for what I would call other hobby mainstays with Cale Makar, Jack Hughes, Kirill Kaprizov, some of the guys as well. Here is something new though, Troy, that I think that I learned, or I have a theory or a hypothesis, whatever you want to call it, in looking at this raw versus graded card values comparison again. I think the paradigm shifts a little bit for newer rookies or players that are kind of have had their breakout or taken their big hobby leap, etc. And I have 4 examples of this. So first we'll look at the big leapers. The obvious guys are Tage the Rage Thompson and J-Rob. So Thompson is a 2017 young gun. Raw card right now about 93 US. PSA 8 Troy 82 US. So it's down a little bit, but not 50%.
Not crazy.
Right?
Not crazy.
Like we saw with other people. PSA 9, $152 US. So Raw's 93, PSA 9 is about 1.5 times. PSA 10, $580. So huge. Like, now this is like what you were talking about, when you, right? 5-6 times. It's like, okay, so Thompson, little bit different than you looking at like McDavid or Matthews. Well, we'll go to J-Rob. Raw's 55 US. A bunch of people commented on that. Well, where do you get J-Robs for 55? I know there's like 3 of them recently, so that's why I use that. PSA 8, 77. PSA 9, 165 US, and PSA 10, 406 US. So really close to, different than McDavid and Matthews, but almost the same ratio as Tage Thompson, right? So it makes you think that, is there a pattern with breakout players early on in their breakout? Well, let's look at some like the newer rookies. So the 2 obvious ones to me were the Cole Caulfield 2021 Young Guns and the Matty Beniers 2022 Young Guns. So Caulfield right now is 87 US raw, 103 US PSA 8, 114 US PSA 9, and 511 US PSA 10. Matty Beniers 76 US raw, 81 US PSA 10 or 8, 81 US PSA 8, 125 US PSA 9, and 450 PSA 10. It's like if you're the math guy and the statistician more than I am, but if you look at Thompson, J-Rob, Caulfield, and Beniers, it's really close, right, to the same ratio. So my takeaway or theory on this is that I wonder if for a short window, and I have no idea how long the time period is, either when a player kind of pops off from hobby obscurity, like Thompson or J-Rob, I guess even to a lesser extent, or if it's really early on in their kind of rookie, right, or close to their rookie campaign. So Caulfield is about a year old, but his PSA 10 population is just kind of starting to climb up there. And you have Beniers. That is this the time, if you want to be in the grade and flip game, where you have to do it? Because if you're going to play I'm going to buy a raw card, a McDavid Young Guns raw, grade it and flip it, there's a good chance you're going to get killed.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. What do you think of all this?
I think it's definitely interesting. It does lead to the belief that you need to grade. If you're going to grade right away. If you're trying to do the flip on these guys that do break out. I'm curious. I'm curious how this whole just market in general, I'd love to do a bigger research project on it. So maybe that's an assignment for someone or us, or I don't know, but it's very interesting to see. And I wonder where I was getting that 5 times from. Like that's always stuck in my head. And maybe that was something that I heard.
Yeah, I don't know. I always thought it was 3 to 4 times. I think another point worth mentioning along these lines, though, is that once a player is established, and boy, you'd have to really look at what the definition of that is, but you've been around for a while, you've had hobby relevance for a while, you're a mainstay, however you want to call it, like with McDavid or Matthews. It's basically, when you're comparing raw to graded, it's PSA 10 or bust at that point.
Yeah. Yep.
Right. So there is a short window. And so if you look at and I think that, what's the moral of the story is that, like you said, if you're going to grade early, because you can still make money off of 9s where you can't when it's 4 years down the road, at least based on what the data is telling us today. So, and if you want to kind of see all the numbers and breaks down, this was posted a couple days ago to Instagram. It'll be on Facebook as well. Go ahead and check us out there. All right, Troy. That is the episode for this Monday. If you like the episode, please leave a rating and review on Apple, Spotify, or whatever podcast app you listen to us on. If you love the show, and how could you not? Honestly, it's got Troy on it. And you want to support us, and you want to chat with us on the regular, on the Hockey Cards Gongshow Discord server, please consider a $5 a month donation and join our out of 99 support level tier on Patreon. Be one of the first 99 supporters ever of the Hockey Cards Gongshow podcast. You can do that real easily by going to the Patreon website, patreon.com, and search for Hockey Cards Gongshow. You can find the link to our Patreon account in the description of today's podcast for whatever app you're listening to us on. Or you can go to our Instagram or TikTok profile, and there's a link tree there, and find the link there. Follow us on social media if you're not already, on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, Twitter, and YouTube. Just search for Hockey Cards Gongshow. And Troy, the Hockey Cards Gongshow podcast is a production of Dollar Box Ventures LLC. We will see you all on Thursday. Have a great week.